Yesterday we learned that every single one of us is compared to this candle, Shalheves Oila Me'ileha, that the Torah says in this week's parasha that the goal of lighting the menorah is you have to light the menorah in such a way until Shalheves Oila Me'ileha, until the flame rises of its own accord. And that's supposed to teach us, each one of us is a flame, each one of us is a spark of Hashem, Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam. The candle, the lamp of Hashem is the soul of man. So therefore, what that teaches us is that every single one of us is not only supposed to be inspired in our lives, but much more importantly than that, we're supposed to get to a point where we are self-sufficient, spiritually self-sufficient. We related that yesterday to the teaching of the Rambam, that it's an ikar gadol, that it's a fundamental principle of Judaism that a person has free choice. Free choice doesn't just mean that Hashem has a system whereby He can hold us accountable. Free choice means that Hashem trusts in us and that He believes that we have the capacity to be able to rise, to be able to become self-sufficient, to be able to do what Hashem wants. And obviously, in that way, we can express godliness in this world like the lamp that illuminates the whole world. Yesterday, we left off with a question. The question was, yes, that's all very nice, and it sounds great in theory, but, there's a but. What's the but? So the but is, but if you look at it, it actually looks like we cannot do anything self-sufficiently, and it looks like we always need Hashem's help. Number one, our neshama is Ner Hashem. It's Hashem's candle. Hashem gave us the neshama. Hashem empowered us. It's not something that we did of our own accord. Number two, the Gemara says that every single day we are attacked by our own Yetzer Hara. And if Hashem would not assist us to be able to overcome our Yetzer Hara, we would never be able to overcome it. So that sounds like we're not self-sufficient. We need to constantly be plugged into a source of inspiration. We also saw the Midrash. The Midrash says that Hashem tells us, you would be unable to do any of my mitzvahs if I hadn't already empowered you. So nobody could bless me unless they were given a soul. And nobody could do a mitzvah unless I had given them the materials with which to do the mitzvah. So it doesn't sound like we're all that self-sufficient, actually. It sounds like we're quite reliant on Hashem. So to answer that question, we have to look in the Gemara Shabbos. And this is very interesting because the Gemara Shabbos tells us what happens if you have two people who violate Shabbos together. Okay, it's an interesting question because as far as the Torah is concerned, in order for a person to be liable for violating Shabbos, obviously they have to do something, the individual has to do something which is against the rules of Shabbos. So let's say for argument's sake that you had an item, let's say like a big box, and you needed to move that box. And it's Shabbos, you're not allowed to take something from a private domain into a public domain, or you're not allowed to carry something for more than 4 amos, which is approximately 2 meters, within the public domain. So you've got two people. The one person is capable on his own to be able to move this whole item. Let's call it a box. He's able to move the whole item on his own. But because it's a little bit inconvenient, so he asks somebody else to come along and to help him. Okay? So now you've got two people violating Shabbos because two people are now carrying this big object outside of the house into the street. So the question in the Gemara is, who are they liable, first of all? Are they liable for violating Shabbos? And more specifically, who is liable? So the Gemara concludes that the person who is capable of doing the work on his own is 100% liable for breaking Shabbos. And the person who assisted him, because that person only kind of alleviated an inconvenience, but he wasn't absolutely critical to the process, so that individual is not liable at all. So the Gemara asks why. He also participated and he also assisted in the process. Here's the part that's relevant to us. So the Gemara says, Misayeya ein boy mamash, which means that a person who assists somebody who is self-sufficient, okay, again, a person who assists somebody who is self-sufficient, Ein boy mamash, that assistance has no substance to it. It is not substantial enough to be considered part of the violation of Shabbos. Isn't that interesting? So, in other words, theoretically, if both people had been incapable of carrying the object on their own, and therefore both of them had to participate, it would be a different law. But the law over here is because the one is only assisting somebody who is essentially self-sufficient, therefore, ein boy mamash, that has no real impact on the experience, and therefore that person is not liable. And that reminds me a little bit of a story. It's a pretty well-known story. It's been told multiple times. Some of us heard it from the protagonist himself. He also published it. It's on Chabad.org. You can look at the story in greater detail. I'm going to tell you the story in brief. Yehuda Avner was a very well-known personality within the Jewish world, specifically as an advisor to a number of Israeli prime ministers, and he accompanied many of them on their trips and many other politicians to New York and to the Rebbe, and he had many interactions with the Rebbe. And on one particular occasion, he had a conversation. Like I say, I'm not going to go through the whole conversation. It'd be worthwhile to look it up in the story on Chabad.org. But he felt within himself that he had overstepped the mark because he made a comment to the Rebbe about how people idolize the Rebbe and perhaps, put him on a pedestal that is beyond what he really is. And what's the role of a Rebbe? That was basically what it boiled down to. And he didn't mean it in a disrespectful way. He was just reporting to the Rebbe what people think and his own musings on the topic. And effectively what the Rebbe told him is this, that every single Jew, as in this week's parasha, is like a candle compared to a lamp that has fuel and has a wick, and then it requires ignition. So you can have the fuel and you can have the wick, but it's not really a lamp until such time as it's a light. So he says, my job is to help those lamps come to light. Now here's the part of the story that is valuable for our conversation. So Yehuda Avner asks the Rebbe, he says, has the Rebbe lit my lamp? Powerful question, right? Has the Rebbe lit my lamp? And the Rebbe smiled at him and he said, no, but I have given you the match. That's called Messiah. By giving you the match, what I've done is I've given you the opportunity. Now, whether you take that opportunity or not is 100% in your hands. So Messiah, the fact that I helped you, ein boy mamish, is of no substance. It doesn't detract in any way from the fact that you've now responded, that you've risen to the challenge. In fact, that is the meaning of the word mamish. What does mamish mean? When somebody wants to make a point, if you've ever hung out with frum people and they want to make a point, they say, mamish. That's mamish what happened. Right? The next best word after that, by the way, is taka. So it's taka mamish what happened. What does mamish mean? Most people tell you mamish means literally. If you want to emphasize your point and indicate that you don't mean it necessarily in a poetic way, but you mean it literally, mamish, literally. That's literally what happened. But the word mamish means more than just literally. If something is real, physical, tangible, we say that it is something which is mamish, mamash. Mamashut means tangibility. Lemashesh means to touch. So mamish means that there are things in this world that are tangible, that are real, that are substantial, and there are things in this world that are catalysts. A catalyst is not mamish. In other words, if you light a candle, what you've done is you've been the catalyst. You've ignited the candle. But the flame is not your flame, it's the candle's flame. And the fuel that allows that flame to burn is the candle's fuel. So what you've done is not the mamish. You haven't done the actual substance of the combustion of this candle. You've just been the catalyst. You've ignited it. You've started the process. By the same token, whatever Hashem has given us, Hashem gives us a neshama. Yes, He has given us a neshama, but the neshama is not mamish. The neshama is not the substance of our lives. The neshama is the ignition. And then we choose whether we're going to respond to that ignition or not. Are we going to actually live through in a mamish, in a real way? Are we going to live the kind of things that our neshama would want us to live? Yes, you cannot overcome your Yetzer Hara without Hashem's help. That's true. But you are the one who's going to take that fight. When will Hashem help the person? Only when the person has stepped up to the plate and started to tackle the Yetzer Hara. Hashem will not tackle your Yetzer Hara on your behalf. And so therefore this principle, shall heves oilo me'eleha, that a person has choice. and a person will, of their own volition, actually do things in their Judaism, is an incredibly powerful message, in spite of the fact that Hashem will give us assistance along the way. The assistance will not in any way detract from our achievement. So it's like if you went to a talk and you were inspired by the topic, and then because you were inspired, you went ahead and you changed something in your life. You started to live more healthy. You practiced another mitzvah in Judaism. Whatever the result is, you can't tell me that the motivational speaker, the person who inspired, is the one who's making you healthy, or the one who's now made you become more involved in your Judaism. That was you. That was your choice. Any one of us at any moment is given the match. We're given the opportunity to ignite our neshama. Whether we take that opportunity or not is wholly in our hands. Incidentally, that's why the Rambam doesn't only write that you have the opportunity and it's Ikar Gadol, it's a fundamental principle of Judaism that we have choice. He doesn't just write that, he places it in a very specific place. There are 14 volumes of the Rambam's work of Jewish law. 14 volumes. Each volume has a specific theme. And within each volume, there are sections, and each section has a specific theme. Now, if he says Ikar Gadol, that the principle of free choice is an Ikar Gadol, it's a fundamental belief of Judaism, then logically he should have written it in the volume of Yesodei HaTorah, the fundamental principles of Torah. Don't you think? Don't you think that's where it belongs? I mean, he says this is Ikar Gadol, this is an underpinning of the whole of Judaism. So the logical place to put this particular concept would be where he talks about those things that are foundations of Judaism. But he doesn't. He specifically puts it in the laws of Teshuvah, which is in a whole different section. Why the laws of Teshuvah? Okay, so you'll say because the whole purpose of free choice is that you can make the wrong decision and then be culpable for that decision, and therefore you have to do Teshuvah. But we've already established that when he says Ikar Gadol, he does not mean that free choice is just there in order to justify the fact that there's reward and punishment, and of course the fact we have to take responsibility for our actions, but rather that it is something fundamental to Judaism. What is fundamental to Judaism? The independence of the human choice. And the fact that a person has that independence is why you could make the wrong choice. And if you could make the wrong choice, you are no longer stuck in that choice. That's why there's Teshuvah, because you could make a choice to rise again. Shalheves oila, the flame to rise again. And that's what the Rambam wants us to know. He wants us to know that the goal and the purpose of Judaism is that you can at any time make a decision that is independently viable, that is considered, and not only considered, but it is actually of your volition, and therefore you own and you have all of the value of that decision. That's what he wants to tell us. Even when you've failed in the past, you have the opportunity to pick yourself up again by your bootstraps and to succeed in the future. Now, tomorrow, please God, what we'll do is we'll examine some of the technical laws around lighting the menorah and how these technical laws reflect exactly this principle, the principle that, yes, Hashem can inspire you, but at the end of the day, He expects you and I to do the work and therefore to take the credit and have the value of our own personal growth.